Well, hello there. My name is Jet Ethan Terry. Here is my official book review over The Things They Carried by Sir Tim O'Brien. The Things They Carried is a fictional story following a group of soldiers in Vietnam. Among these group of soldiers, we find our author, Tim O'Brien. The story follows several different point of views, mostly following Mr. Tim O'Brien. From the different soldiers in this group of men. This book has a lot of twists and turns through it. It talks about life during and after the war in Vietnam and how the war has affected these soldiers' lives after and during the war. Here are some of my important aspects of the book that I picked out and I found very interesting. Even though the story is fiction, you can't tell at all. I really love this aspect. It feels so real while you're reading it. It makes you wonder how Tim O'Brien made some of this stuff up, to be honest. Makes you feel like you were there with them in Vietnam. Another important aspect of this book that I hold dear to my heart is Tim O'Brien's storytelling. Just a tremendous author, in my opinion. One of the best authors I've read from. This kind of aspect follows the previous one, kind of carrying it along. The way he tells just makes it feel hard to believe that most of what he's saying didn't really happen. The way he goes into detail in some of his stories, it's amazing. Some of the stories telling, it's just really amazing to read, and I love that. And this movie had so many quotes to choose from, and there's a lot of great quotes in this movie. And one of my favorite quotes, possibly that I've ever read out of a book, is "War is hell," but that's not half of it. Because war is also mystery and terror and adventure and courage and discovery and holiness and pity and despair and longing and love. War is nasty, war is fun, war is thrilling, war is drudgery. War makes you a man, and war makes you dead. This is my favorite quotes because it uses so many words to describe war, and I feel like the imagery really gets to you whenever you read this quote right here. I truly believe it is the closest thing that you can get to war without being there, and that goes for the entire book. This book just makes you feel like you were over there in Vietnam with these soldiers. Like I've said previously, I really love this book. I really just love war. I've followed along with World War I, World War II, the Civil War, even the Revolutionary War. My grandpa, he's a big time book guy. He loves books and he has a lot of war books, and he always used to teach me about war whenever we were growing up. But he's never gone into real detail about the Vietnam War. I feel like this book really is a good book and shows me how the Vietnam War has panned out. I mean, it was a really bad time for America. It's one of the best, even out of movies, war books and movies I've seen and read, because it opened me up to a new perspective about war. Now, this might be because it's my first time, like I've already said, having to really read, or I've never seen a movie over the Vietnam. I never knew it was as bad as this book portrayed it to be. And I watched Forrest Gump, and that movie that one scene just in that movie, if you've never seen it, you need to go watch it. It's really terrifying scene. And this book just has changed my perspective and about the Vietnam War, because it's really terrifying to think that people who are a few years older than me were over there fighting this war that just seemed like we couldn't do anything about it, like it was unbeatable. And now I know it wasn't the bloodiest American war, but the stories and the details that this book portrays, it's pretty scary. And we watched a documentary the other day in class, and I know this is kind of off topic, but we were watching that documentary the other day in class, and I was honestly a little scared, because I just imagined myself being there, and I don't think I could do it, if I'm being completely honest. But a little off track there, but for example, how Tim O'Brien literally thought about fleeing to Canada before this war, and how people did that just to avoid this. That makes me feel like it's probably the scariest, or one of the scariest wars that an American soldier could have been sent to. I mean, the fact that they didn't know where the enemy, or who the enemy even was. And you just never knew, like, how you could go, when you could go. That just makes me sick at my stomach, if I'm being completely honest. And I mean, that's why I love this book. Really amazing book. Yeah, and that is why it's probably one of the scariest books I've ever seen or ever read. And I say scariest, it has some good parts in it, but I feel like a good war book or movie makes you feel scared and sick to your stomach, and hoping that something like this never happens again. And I gave this book a 3.5 stars, and that's because most war books and war movies are nonfiction. They're based off of people's experiences, and honestly, because of most of what happened in the book didn't even happen, that's why I had to dock it a few stars. Okay, it probably would have been 4.5, probably docked it 2 stars because it wasn't real. And I'm not saying that makes it a bad book at all. It's just different, from what most books you're used to, and war books that you're used to. But other than that, I was really freaking interested in this book. It's an awesome book. It's just an amazing war book. And like I've said before, I've always been a big fan of war books and war movies, and that's why I really enjoyed this absolute masterpiece by Tim O'Brien. I'm very interested in this guy now, and I'm hoping I can have a chance to read some of his other books, because this book really opened me up to a new perspective of how scary war can be and how bad it was for those in Vietnam. And that is my official review over The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.